The least clarified part of the United States Constitution is the 10th Amendment. Do you want to guess why it's here? Because enforcing the clarification of the rights to the people, which is what this amendment says, that anything that isn't prohibited by the Constitution for the federal government goes directly to either the states or the people. An example is, say, tattoos. Tattoos, the federal government has no authority to look at an autism tattoo and say, hey, Tren de Agua, whatever the hell that gang is, and sending you to El Salvador based on a tattoo. Rather, it would be up to the state. And necessarily, the states even don't have that much control over your own free will. This is why prohibition was repealed, remember? Rather, what happens is that the state can say, hey, you have to be 18 in order to get a tattoo, or you need parental consent within a certain age. But ultimately, that freedom goes to the people. So why would the courts and our political officials not want to expand on the rights of the people? Obviously, because expanding on the rights of the people within the Constitution would mean that it would diminish the rights of the states and the rights of the federal government. See, while we can read the United States Constitution as the text and understand that the Constitution serves as a safeguard from the power of the government for the people, so protecting the people against the government, when you look at originalism, which is the opinions of those who wrote the Constitution and those who are creating the lawmaking, they see the Constitution as protection for the government against the power of the people, which is why the TikTok ban exists, right? Because the great algorithm is a threat to the U.S. foreign policy. So protecting the power of the government from the power of the people, that is misaligned to the textualism of the Constitution, but under originalism, it does align. So it's saying that you can revoke visas and you can deport students because they created protests that challenge the U.S. foreign policy. That is hijacking the Constitution to protect the government from the power of the people, which is not what it's supposed to be. And we can see this misalignment of disenfranchising the people in the Constitution itself. Apart from the 10th Amendment, there isn't a lot of talk about the power of the people, although the Constitution exists through the consent of the people. The complication arises in that we pat ourselves on the back for having a separation of powers, right? Having checks and balances. However, who checks Congress? The courts cannot check Congress in a way in which it can remedy wrongdoing. The executive cannot check Congress. Who checks Congress? It is the people. But since the people don't have the constitutional recognition as any sort of agency or entity that is capable of checking Congress through a constitutional procedure, then it means that no one can check Congress. So there is no checks and balances because no one checks Congress. Congress can check the courts. The court checks the executive. The executive can observe Congress. However, it cannot create any punishment that can change their work in the political reality. But if they have done something that is so significantly a threat to democracy and to the electorate, then why is it that we cannot remove them beforehand? Because there's no processes that say as such. And this is why we need, when we do the Constitutional Convention, because it's not a question of will we have it, we will have it. It's just a question of when, right? But when we do this, we need to ensure that the people are recognized within the Constitution as a body capable of rectifying constitutional crises, particularly a vote of no confidence in the Congress that can dissolve it and create special elections to input new people. Also, like I said in this video, to be within an oversight committee in Congress that actually houses the administrative state so that neither the Congress nor the executive can utilize administrative agencies as weapons against the people. But in order to do this, we have to move away from originalism, which is the opinions of those who wrote it, and go into textualism, which is the social contract and those guidelines that allow for us to create a more perfect union within those boundaries versus that of opinion from external texts. See, the bipartisan opinion in government that the Constitution serves to protect the government from the power of the people is driven through originalism, particularly Federalist 51 by either Alexander Hamilton or James Madison. Now listen, but understand that what you're listening may sound great. However, when you realize that we have been misaligned to what is necessary under our constitutional guidance, then you will understand why we have gone so rogue. If a majority be united by common interest, the rights of the minority will be insecure. Now, what's important to understand is that the constitutional protections are particularly for the American individuals, not necessarily for foreign policy, not necessarily for a foreign government. So when we're talking about the rights of individuals being insecure, it is the rights of American citizens being insecure, not of foreigners being insecure because of our challenging of a foreign policy. There are but two methods of providing against this evil. The one by creating a will in the community independent of the majority that is of the society itself. Now, this is the one we need to shift towards, okay? This is the one we need to do. Because even though I admit our Constitution is insufficient, when we get to fixing it, and even right now, even going to the constitutional middle ground, this would be sufficient. This would be sufficient to restore this mess. Because if I'm disqualified, then I cannot win. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. The reality that the Constitution was attacked and then we allowed for someone who did that to take the oath again is a slap into the constitutional reality, right? Understandably, when this was written, we hadn't ratified the Constitution, so they went for the second alternative. The other, by comprehending in the society so many separate descriptions of citizens as will render an unjust combination of a majority of the whole very improbable, if not impracticable. Notice what they're saying is that divide and conquer is a government strategy in order to make sure that we filter out passions in the society so that the people won't be united in a common effort, right? This is disenfranchising the people so that they don't have power over the government. This is what justifies the TikTok ban. It's what's justifying deporting U.S. residents and students for being against the government mandate. While all authority in it will be derived from and dependent on the society, which is false because if you're lying to the people and you're purposely dividing and conquering, then you yourself are manipulating the narrative so that they position political decision making that you as a political actor are forcing them to vote into. But it argues that the society itself will be broken into so many parts, interests, and classes of citizens that the rights of individuals or of the minority will be in little danger from interested combinations of the majority. Now, this is false. This is false because we are living this legacy, and primarily it is the reality that they consider that the people cannot have its interests subvert other entities such as governments, such as corporations, because corporations are people and the government exists as corporate lobbyists rather than that of the electorate. What really is occurring when we're allowing for originalist guidance to create judicial decision making contrary to the actual textualism of our Constitution is that we actually promote the opinion of outdated political guidance from the 1700s in 2025. So what we have to accept is that what they wrote in the Constitution, while great, isn't necessarily what they intended when they wrote it. And the reality that we allow judges to argue for what they intended rather than what they wrote tells us that we have historically been misaligned to the actual social contract. And therefore, when we fix this, we have to ensure that we, the people, have a much more secure, categorized role within the constitutional foundation. That we have recognition and that we can uplift the actual social and civil rights that we require in order to exist, such as the fact that the right to bear arms has much more protections than the right to vote. That should not be in existence, but they get to pick and choose. We have to disallow from that when we fix this, obviously in the future, right?